Welcome back to World History Unpacked. Today's episode looks at a big global question. How did Europe rise to global power by colonizing the Americas, while China stayed dominant in Asia without colonizing at all? Even though both Europeans and Chinese explored beyond their borders during the 1400s, only Europe chose to settle and exploit the Americas. China didn't, but still controlled Asian trade. So how could both things be true at the same time? This goes into segment 1, China's strength without colonization. First, let's talk about China. From the 14th to the 18th centuries, China was ruled by the Ming and Qing dynasties. And during this time, China had many major accomplishments. One important achievement was a strong centralized government. The Ming and Qing empires relied on Confucian ideas and used the civil service exam to choose educated officials instead of nobles. Second, China had advanced agriculture, especially improved rice farming, which supported massive population growth and food stability. Third, China dominated Asian trade. Chinese goods like silk, porcelain, and tea were in high demand across Asia and even Europe. Fourth, China had technological and cultural achievements, including printing, art, and fine craftsmanship that made its goods unmatched in quality. Fifth, under the Qing dynasty, China experienced territorial expansion, increasing control over the Central Asia and strengthening borders. Because China already had resources, skilled labor, and a huge internal market, it didn't need colonies to stay powerful, especially in Asia. This goes into segment 2, what Europe gained from colonizing the Americas. Now let's look at Europe. When Europeans colonized the Americas, they gained massive advantages. First, European nations acquired huge amounts of gold, silver, especially from the places like Spanish-controlled mines. This wealth funded governments, armies, and expansion. Second, the Columbian Exchange transformed Europe. New crops like potatoes and corn improved diets and led to population growth. Third, colonization helped create global trade networks, connecting Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Fourth, colonial profits led to the growth of capitalism and banking, helping Europe modernize its economy. Fifth, colonization increased European political power, allowing nations like Spain and England to become global empires. However, this growth came at a cost, through slavery, forced labor, and exploitation of indigenous peoples. This jumps me into segment 3, why Europe gained global power. Europe gained greater global power for several reasons. First, colonies gave Europeans direct access to raw materials, which China already had internally. Second, wealth from the Americas allowed Europe to build strong navies and militaries. Third, constant competition between European nations pushed innovation, exploration, and expansion. Together, these factors helped Europe surpass China on the global scale. This leads me into segment 4, why China lost global ground but stayed dominant in Asia. Even though China lost ground globally, it stayed dominant in Asia. One reason China lost global influence was self-isolation, which limited overseas trade and exploration. Another reason was China's focus on stability instead of expansion, which reduced its role in global empire building. However, China maintained dominance in Asia because it still controlled valuable goods, had a strong economy, and remained the main destination for global silver. So in conclusion, how could Europe rise globally while China stayed powerful regionally? Europe used colonization to gain wealth, power, and influence across the world. China relied on internal strength and regional trade dominance. Both strategies worked, but in very different ways.